What does it mean to listen? If you haven't done so already, I want you to actually perform the to do task that was outlined above here. In this task, I want you to open a new note on a computer note taking application of some sort, or a text document in Word, or just simply grab a piece of paper and a writing utensil. I want you to take a true 10 minutes. I want you to take a true 10 minutes and contemplate what does it mean to listen. And of course, you're not going to think about what that means for the full time. And hopefully, during a portion of that time, you listened. And at the end of that time, I want you to record your thoughts about what does it mean to listen. And I want you to save that writing for later. I want you to come back to it later in the semester. If you haven't done that yet, stop the video now and go do that. So what does it mean to listen? Obviously, related to hearing, it's one of the five senses. There's, of course, our ability to hear, our ability to see, our ability to touch and feel, our ability to smell, and our ability to taste. There's clearly something primal in it. Hearing is something that we use as a protection mechanism. It's something that alerts us to the world around us. I like to use the example that hearing is one of the kind of primal protection mechanisms. It's really tied to our kind of old world brains. When you hear a scary sound or something that you're not expecting, you feel a jolt of adrenaline. Your body, without you thinking about it, prepares to act and to protect itself. You tense up, you become higher in alert. And let's say you hear a twig or a roar or something from behind you. All of a sudden, you know that you need to refocus your senses in a different direction and potentially become prepared to protect yourself. The sense of hearing is also something that very intimate. All of our senses, of course, have the ability to be very, very intimate, and hearing is no different. The ability to hear a loved one or a quiet sound in your ear can bring up incredibly intense memories, emotions, and feelings. Listening is obviously one of the ways that we communicate information to each other. Right now, you're hearing me talk to you, and you're processing that information and doing something with it in your brain, hopefully encoding it and not just letting it go away. Where I'd like to start with this conversation, you'll notice in the next heading below this video, is this difference between listening and hearing. And I'd like to get you to think that listening is something that we as humans do through our sense of hearing. So, hearing is a physical sense of quality. It's something that's always on. For those of us who are don't have any altered hearing, we hear at all times of day. Even when we're sleeping, our sense of hearing is still intact and can wake us from our slumber if something startles us. Hearing is the actual physical act of sound pressure waves, which we're going to talk about more later this semester, coming in to your cochlea, kind of in these ridges and everything else, and in the pinna here of the ear, and going into the cochlea, and then of course it hits the eardrum or tympanic membrane. Again, we're going to come back to all of this later, and it vibrates against that, and then our eardrum converts that energy into a different type of physical energy that these little hair cells in our ear can actually pick up on it, and then those hair cells transmit electrical signals or impulses to our brain, and that gives us the sensation of various frequencies or various different pitches, notes, up and down, higher, lower, at various amplitudes or loudnesses. it defines the complex spectrum of sound that we as humans are capable of experiencing. This is the act of hearing. And again, unlike the eye, we can't blink an ear. We can't turn off hearing. So it's something that is really important to us as humans. It's something that's always on. I want you to contemplate that. What does that mean, the fact that you can't blink an ear? What does it mean that you're always hearing? So hearing is a physiological act of sensing sound, and listening is the actual cognitive act of making meaning of the sounds we hear. Listening is putting energy towards those sounds and making meaning of them, trying to create larger senses of structure and organization of them. Trying to figure out what they are, trying to harken back to any memories we might have of those sound events. Listening is actually taking in this constant stream of sound. Because we don't blink, sound is constant. I can close my eyes and I can't see anything in front of me, but I'm still hearing. There's no turning off the sound coming in. I can cover my ears, but it's not quite the same thing. I'm still hearing sound. I'm still able to sense especially low frequency sound. So that this data stream of sound in the physical world is always there. And so listening is also the act of trying to segregate those sounds into individual events and make meaning of them individually. As you listen to my words, you segregate the start and end of each word into its own thing, into its own bucket. Bucket becomes a word that you understand. Every other word in that sentence is then separated, and then you put those words back together and make higher meaning out of that sentence. But again, so listening is the act of actually making meaning of what we hear. So listening requires work. It's an incredibly complex process. Someone tells you, "I love you," and you have an emotional reaction to that. You understand what that sentence or statement means. You contextualize that based on who is telling you that and where or when or how they might be telling you that. Pauline Oliveros is someone whom I have incredible respect for and admiration for. They've since left us and this world, but she was an incredible artist and musician and thinker and philosopher who was involved with and who led the way on deep listening, something we'll get onto in the next couple pages. Pauline says that hearing is something that happens to us because we have ears. It is our primary sense organ. Listening is something we develop and cultivate our whole life, and maybe all of our lifetimes. Listening is what creates culture. Listening is very diverse and takes many forms, as culture takes many forms. All right, so 10 minutes wasn't that long. And likely you've never thought about this much. Maybe you have. But how did your working definition, the one you wrote down a few minutes ago for listening, differ? Or how is it similar to the thoughts that are on this page? I'd like you to contemplate that. I'd like you to contemplate that a few more minutes. Sorry about that little flicker there of the camera. It turns off and on every once in a while to protect the sensor. What does it mean to listen, and why is it important to you? Sure. We're going to talk a little bit later in this semester that we've transformed into a visual society, one dominated by our sense of sight. Visual information is king. It's how we understand and organize and exist in this world. But we are hearing beings. We are listening beings. What does it mean to listen? What does it mean to you to listen. Why is listening important to you? How is it different than seeing? What is unique about listening? These are some of the things I want you to contemplate throughout this semester, and I want you to be prepared to explore. It's a gift to be able to listen. It's a really special thing. The sounds of this world are diverse, they're incredibly complex, and the range of subtleties that we can hear in our world is inspiring. I want you to think about that as you move through this weekend into the next one. This is a really important topic, and one that I hope you give some time to.